We're on the second part of chapter 12. And remember, we're trying to figure out what is this ghost in the house. So, punctually at 9 o'clock, after the children had gone to bed and Fräulein Rottenmeier had retired, the doctor arrived. He was a gray-haired man with a fresh face and two bright, kindly eyes. He looked anxious as he walked in, but on catching sight of his patient, burst out laughing and clapped him on the shoulder. "Well," he said, "you look pretty bad for a person that I am to sit up with all night." "Patience, friend," answered Herr Seesman. "The one you have to sit up for will look a good deal worse when we have once caught him." "So there is a sick person in the house, and one that has first to be caught?" "Much worse than that, doctor. A ghost in the house. My house is haunted." The doctor laughed out loud. "That's a nice way of showing sympathy, doctor," continued Herr Seesman. "It's a pity my friend Rottenmeier cannot hear you. She is firmly convinced that some old member of the family is wandering about the house doing penance for some awful crime he committed." "How did she become acquainted with him?" asked the doctor, still very much amused. So Herr Seesman recounted to him how the front door was nightly opened by somebody, according to the testimony of the combined household, and he had therefore provided 2 loaded revolvers so as to be prepared for anything that happened. For either the whole thing was a joke, got up by some friend of the servants just to alarm the household while he was away, and in that case a pistol fired into the air would procure him a wholesome fright. Or else it was a thief, who, by leading everybody at first to think there was a ghost, made it safe for himself when he came later to steal, as no one would venture to run out if they heard him, and in that case, too, a good weapon would not be amiss. The 2 took up their quarters for the night in the same room in which Sebastian and John had kept watch. A bottle of wine was placed on the table, for a little refreshment would be welcome from time to time if the night was to be passed sitting up. Beside it lay the 2 revolvers, and 2 good-sized candles had also been lighted, for Herr Seesman was determined not to wait for ghosts in any half-light. The door was shut close to prevent the light being seen in the hall outside, which might frighten away the ghost. And now the 2 gentlemen sat comfortably back in the armchairs and began talking of all sorts of things, now and then pausing to take a good draught of wine, and so 12 o'clock struck before they were even aware. "The ghost has got good scent of us, and keeping away tonight," said the doctor. "Wait a bit. It does not generally appear before 1 o'clock," answered his friend. They started talking again. 1 o'clock struck. There was not a sound about the house, nor in the street outside. Suddenly the doctor lifted his finger. "Hush, Seesman, don't you hear something?" They both listened, and they distinctly heard the bar softly pushed aside, and then the key turned in the lock, and the door opened. Herr Seesman put out his hand for his revolver. "You are not afraid, are you?" said the doctor as he stood up. "It is better to take precautions," whispered Herr Seesman, and seizing one of the lights in his other hand, he followed the doctor, who, armed in like manner with a light and a revolver, went softly on in front. They stepped into the hall. The moonlight was shining in through the open door and fell on a white figure standing motionless in the doorway. "Who is there?" thundered the doctor in a voice that echoed through the hall, as the 2 men advanced with lights and weapons toward the figure. It turned and gave a low cry. There, in her little white nightgown, stood Heidi, with bare feet, staring with wild eyes at the lights and the revolvers, and trembling from head to foot like a leaf in the wind. The 2 men looked at one another in surprise. "Why, I believe it is your little water carrier, Seesman," said the doctor. "Child, what does this mean?" said Herr Seesman. "What did you want? Why did you come down here?" White with terror and hardly able to make her voice heard, Heidi answered, "I don't know." But now the doctor stepped forward. This is a matter for me to see to, Seaman. Go back to your chair. I must take the child upstairs to her bed. And with that, he put down his revolver and, gently taking the child by the hand, led her upstairs. Don't be frightened, he said as they went up side by side. It's nothing to be frightened about. It's all right. Only just go quietly. On reaching Heidi's room, the doctor put the candle down on the table and, taking Heidi up in his arms, laid her on the bed and carefully covered her over. Then he sat down beside her and waited until Heidi had grown quieter and no longer trembled so violently. He took her hand and said in a kind, soothing voice, "There, now you feel better. And now, tell me where you were wanting to go." "I did not want to go anywhere," said Heidi. "I did not know I went downstairs, but all at once I was there." "I see. And had you been dreaming, so that you seemed to see and hear something very distinctly?" "Yes, I dream every night, and always about the same things. I think I am back with the grandfather, and I hear the sound in the fir trees outside, and I see the stars shining so brightly, and then I open the door quickly and run out, and it is all so beautiful. But when I wake, I am still in Frankfurt." And Heidi struggled as she spoke to keep back the sobs which seemed to choke her. "And have you no pain anywhere? No pain in your head or back?" "No, only a feeling as if there were a great stone weighing on me here." "As if you had eaten something that would not go down?" "No, not like that. Something heavy, as if I wanted to cry very much." "I see. And then do you have a good cry?" "Oh, no, I mustn't. Fräulein Rottenmeier forbade me to cry." "So you swallow it all down, I suppose. Are you happy here in Frankfurt?" "Yes," was the low answer, but it sounded more like no. "And where did you live with your grandfather?" "Up on the mountain." "That wasn't very amusing. Rather dull at times, eh?" "Oh, no, no, it was beautiful, beautiful." Heidi could go no further. The remembrance of the past, the excitement she had just gone through, the long-suppressed weeping were too much for the child's strength. The tears began to fall fast, and she broke into violent weeping. The doctor stood up and laid her head kindly down on the pillow. "There, there, go on crying. It will do you good. And then go to sleep. It will be all right tomorrow." Then he left the room and went downstairs to Herr Seaman. When he was once more sitting in the armchair opposite his friend, "Seaman," he said, "let me first tell you that your little charge is a sleepwalker. She is the ghost who has nightly opened the front door and put your household into this fever of alarm. Secondly, the child is consumed with homesickness, to such an extent that she is nearly a skeleton already, and soon will be quite one. Something must be done at once. For the first trouble, due to her overexcited nerves, there is but one remedy, to send her back to her native mountain air, and for the second trouble, there is also but one cure, and that the same. So tomorrow, the child must start for home. There you have my prescription." Herr Seaman had arisen and now paced up and down the room in the greatest state of concern. "What?" he exclaimed. "The child a sleepwalker and ill, homesick and grown emaciated in my house? All this has taken place in my house and no one seen or known anything about it?" "All this has taken place in my house and no one seen or known anything about it?" "And you mean, doctor, that the child who came here happy and healthy, I am to send back to her grandfather a miserable little skeleton? I can't do it. You cannot dream of my doing such a thing. Take the child in hand, do with her what you will, and make her whole and sound, and then she shall go home. But you must do something first." "Seaman," replied the doctor, "consider what you are doing. This illness of the child is not one to be cured with pills and powders. The child has not a tough constitution, but if you send her back at once, she may recover in the mountain air. If not, you would rather she went back ill than not at all." Herr Sesemann stood still. The doctor's words were a shock to him. "If you put it so, doctor, there is assuredly only one way, and the thing must be seen to at once." And then he and the doctor walked up and down for a while, arranging what to do, after which the doctor said goodbye, for some time had passed since they first sat down together, and as the master himself opened the hall door, this time the morning light shone down through it into the house. All right, we'll see what happens with Heidi next. The next time we read. See you then.